Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 68. Our president-level patron, Ruby, has selected Medusa from the Inhumans.
This will be a hair-raising experience.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. I'll try and keep stone-faced. Wrong Medusa, I know.
So before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. As always, we are coming up on our mental health Avengers episode, so we are very, very excited about that. That's going to be coming up next week. It's going to be a little break. So it's us and our friends from Popcorn Psychology, Guardians, MH, Pop Psych 101, and Freudian Sips. We will be discussing access to mental health care and the various hoops and obstacles that folks have to undergo to basically get the proper treatment that they need, which is not an easy thing.
Right.
And given the healthcare system in America, I know Dr. Goku's going to be talking about access to Canadian healthcare as well, which I'm sure is a lot of sorry and boots.
Yes,
okay, we love Dr. Goku. So we're definitely looking forward to that one. And I know Doc is looking forward to joining us as well. So a review read from our friends over at the Cinemondo Podcast. They left us this review on Podchaser. A unique perspective on the superhero genre, refreshing and fun discussion that goes deep into the psychology of the superheroes you know and love. Fascinating listen. So thank you so much. And they will also be our shout out of the week for the podcast. Kathy, Mark, and Burke review genre films. All three of them work in the industry, so they have some real insider knowledge, and they definitely know what they're talking about. But as we said last week with the Bang Average Movie Podcast, they don't take it seriously. And so they have some really fascinating guests on the show. And so you can check them out at cinemondopodcast.com or wherever you find podcasts. And as we said, if you leave us a rating and review and you send us a screen cap along with your address and you email it to capesonthecouch@gmail.com, we'll send you a sticker. So as a way of saying thank you, because we definitely appreciate that. We're going to be pushing Podchaser a lot more because it's a really cool site. I definitely dig it. So in any case, we're going to be getting into Medusa, who some folks may know from the horrible, god awful, terrible, very bad, no good, horrible, disgusting ABC show, which Ruby referred to as Scott Buck fan fiction.
Nice.
She doesn't consider it MCU proper. And having been one of the poor bastards who paid to see the first two episodes in IMAX when they did that whole, hey, we're releasing it in IMAX. Yeah, my wife and I saw it, and we left.
Sorry.
We left there, and I was like, well, it was beautiful because it was shot in IMAX, and it's, set in Hawaii, part of it. So it looks pretty. And then we slogged through the show, and then it became just like it's on the DVR. We might as well watch it.
Oh my goodness!
When we had nothing else to watch, that's worse than Iron Fist season 1. That's how bad it is. Also, showrunner Scott Buck. So, but the comic book character, let's talk about her. So, Medusa, full name Medusalith Amaquelin-Boltagon.
Now that I know that, I shall try my best to forget it.
What's that from?
To be honest with you, I've been saying it for so long, I completely forgot.
Yeah, but I've heard you say that many, many times. So yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, got it. And he didn't say those exact words in one of the novels, but very similarly, because the mind is an attic and you have to keep track of things, otherwise it gets too cluttered. Okay. Anyway.
I can appreciate that. In any case, Medusalith Amaquelin is her maiden name, and then she takes on Boltagon because she marries Black Bolt, a.k.a. Blackagar Boltagon. Anyway, Medusa was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in Fantastic Four number 36, March 1965. She was originally a member of the Frightful Four, who were enemies of the Fantastic Four, which also included the Wizard, Sandman, and Paste Pot Pete, a.k.a. the Trickster. but he will forever be Paste Pot Pete. So we find out that the other members of the Frightful Four had her under mind control until Professor Xavier helped her break free. And so her whole thing is she has prehensile hair. So we later find out that she is a member of the Inhumans, and she was mutated by the Terrigen Mists to provide their race with extraordinary powers. So she has this massive head of red hair that can work as tentacles, hands. She can carry things. She can whip your ass with it. It's very, very versatile. So she was basically a member of the Inhuman royal family. She fell in love with her distant cousin Black Bolt, and they married, and they became king and queen of the Inhumans. At one point, she temporarily joined the Fantastic Four as a replacement for Sue Richards, who was off taking care of Valeria and Franklin. And she gave birth to a son, Uhura, who became the Judy Winslow of the Marvel Universe.
Oh, my God.
Or the Chuck Cunningham, if you will.
Okay.
You know, basically, Uhura was just sort of forgotten.
Yeah.
Except he was brought back at one point, like very, very briefly in like the late 90s during one storyline. And they were like, say, yeah, we've got a son. And then he grows up to become another version of Kang the Conqueror. And it's a whole other thing. But by and large, your average Inhuman storyline is going to completely ignore the fact that Black Bolt and Medusa have a kid. It's kind of messed up. Anyway, she has to fight off the advances of Black Bolt's brother, Maximus the Mad, on numerous occasions because he's infatuated with her and feels that they should be together.
So Maximus is the Urkel of the Marvel Universe? I'm wearing you down. Sorry.
Did I do that?
Okay. Anyway.
So due to Black Bolt's powers, which for those of you unaware, Black Bolt cannot make any sound. Any sound that he utters is destructive beyond measure. Even a whisper could level a mountain. And so he has to train himself to be incredibly silent at all times, not even make a noise while he's sleeping. And so Medusa has to serve as his interpreter / spokesperson, which is a role that she very much chafes at. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. And by the way, again, as we do with some of the many of our older characters, I'm really compressing the background here. There's some fantastic stories that I would definitely encourage you to read. Go on Marvel Unlimited and check it out because, especially when doing research for this, Medusa and the Inhumans in general were in way more stories than I thought they were. But I digress. So she takes over as leader of the Inhumans upon Black Bolt's death in the Realm of Kings, which is written by Abnett and Lanning during the whole their run, which is when they created the Guardians of the Galaxy as we know them now, and the War of Kings, and some really, really great stories involving the cosmic Marvel characters. So really, really cool stuff. So she ends up not only taking over as leader of the Inhumans, she also replaces Black Bolt in the Illuminati for a time. She helps rebuild Adelon during the Inhumanity storyline when the Terrigen bomb explodes, which ended up creating thousands of new Inhumans. And then when it was later revealed that Black Bolt ended up being alive and was, in fact, the one responsible for setting off the Terrigen bomb, he returns. She basically attacks him for setting off the Terrigen bomb and then abandoning her. She's like, she beats it out of him. So she disowns him. She kicks him out of Adelon. And
yeah, it's the most brutal way of saying, I think we need some time apart.
Yeah, I think we need some space. And then she has an affair with Johnny Storm.
That's hot.
Damn you. Until Black Bolt returns and apologizes to her out loud because he lost the destructive power in his voice because comics. And so then she abdicates the throne during the whole Inhumans versus X-Men arc because she wants to establish a democracy among the Inhumans. And then she ends up destroying the Terrigen cloud in order to save mutants because it turns out that the Terrigen Mists are fatal to mutants, even though that's what gives the Inhumans their powers, because Marvel was trying to kill off all the mutants since they didn't have the film rights to the X-Men characters, but they did have the film rights to the Inhumans, which is why we ended up getting the horrible TV show. Anyway, As a result of that act, her hair began falling out, which is basically akin to her dying, because it was revealed that since she destroyed the Terrigen cloud, that the Terrigen Mists that was giving her and her hair its abilities was abandoning her. It was like, you killed off any future chance of the Inhumans. So you betrayed the Inhumans, you betrayed Terrigen. So we're just going to leave you. So then she's off on a search to find a way to rejuvenate the Inhumans. And she takes Primogen, which is the new, better version of the Terrigen Mists, and it restores her hair and health. She's also on A-Force, which is the all-female version of Heroes, which started off as part of the Secret War storyline, and then they introduced an A-Force in the 616 universe. Point is, Medusa's been in a lot of really cool stories. I'm not going to get into all of that. Let's just dive right into the issue. So I addressed it a little bit in the background. And one of the biggest things is that she does not appreciate having to always speak for her husband. She feels that many times she does not have a voice of her own. And this is a very real thing because she is queen. He is king. They are, in theory, equals.
Yep.
And yet she feels that when she's speaking, a lot of times people assume that it's his words. And then many times he is the strategist, but because he can't speak what those plans are, and I'm thinking specifically to the Jenkins Lee storyline where he's got this whole thing, Atlanta's under attack by, I believe it's Argentinian forces. And he has this whole plan to basically draw them in and then destroy them, but he can't tell anybody that. So she has to implicitly trust him. And everybody else has to implicitly trust his plan that it's going to work, but she can't tell him that. There's a lot of trust there, and it creates a lot of friction. That weighs on anybody, certainly weighs on a relationship, a marriage. And we're going to get into the Regal thing in a moment. But, so just first and foremost, the fact that it's difficult for her to be considered to have her own voice because if she's speaking, that's really Black Bolt talking. What does that do to a person?
Well, that points to the imbalance in any relationship. I'm not blaming Black Bolt directly. I'm not blaming Medusa directly, because dynamics in a marriage take time for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that do like the instant elopement kind of thing, but I'm not referencing those. This is not something that happened overnight, and it's not something that will be fixed overnight. But unfortunately, we all get into our patterns of behavior, and this obvious imbalance has to do with who has value where. Some couples look to it as, I'm the person that pays all the bills, you're the person that brings home the bacon. Or I'm the one that does a lot of the chores, you're the one, or do the chores inside, you're the one that does the chores outside. I'm the one that keeps track of where we go and what we do, you're the person that just shuts up, smiles, and looks nice. I'm that last one especially, I did intentionally say in a negative way, because that's where things really start to break down. Because on one hand, you can start to develop resentment for a role that's already been cast, either because you didn't want it cast that way in the first place and you were fighting it, and then you ultimately just said, you know what, I give up. I will just accept things as they are because I'd rather have neutrality than war in terms of how you're interacting with the other person. On the other hand, you may have a situation where it really is a battle almost every day as to who does what. That's the other, that's the other extreme. And neither one of those is good. So the idea that you always have to play off this dynamic that, first of all, recognizing that nothing's going to be perfect every single day or happen the same way every single day. But Medusa has the added challenge that she can't possibly have the same perspective that Black Bolt does, because Black Bolt, for all of his powers, has this significant limitation. It would be the equivalent of a marriage where one person has a severe, I'm not talking like minor, like a severe disability. If they can't do things physically that other people can do, and it's your spouse's responsibility to do those other things, you have the obligation to say, yes, I know that's my thing. I know that's what I have to do. But it's incredibly draining. It would be nice if I could just take a break. But unfortunately, as we know in life, life doesn't quote unquote give you breaks. So it's not as if, comics aside, you could just say, you know what, this disability, yeah, I'm just going to get rid of it for today so you can rest. And all those things that you used to do to accommodate me, yeah, I'll make sure that I do them for myself. Not possible. So even when it's a situation where the person wants, let's say that person really does want to reciprocate in a way that would make things quote unquote more even, it's not rational to do. So this goes beyond resentment. This almost becomes a situation where you wonder, well, why did I get into this in the first place? Was this all a mistake? Or if it's the case where I'm doing this because I actually have an altruistic mindset in the relationship, am I a failure? It can actually be flipped that way somehow. I can't believe I can't take care of this person when it's clearly my job. But then again, to once again go to the other side, why is that your only job? There are so many other things in life. There are so many other parts to a relationship. Why is being at the beck and call of one other person the ideal? I don't think that is. But that's my personal opinion. So there are just so many variations on this one question in any one-on-one relationship that I don't know that there's a specific answer. My point is you have to keep asking the question. If you don't do that, then you end up in this dynamic where every single person in their lives knows, quote unquote, knows how it works. Once you get to that level of stagnation, then you're going to lose a lot of the love.
You got to keep it fresh. You have to communicate, which is not easy when anything that your husband says would obliterate you and everything around you.
Right. And that's the thing. If let's go this route. I'm really going to make this direct. If you out there, if you are caring for someone, let's say they're paraplegic, there are certain things that they can't do. You know, you have to meet those needs. And on top of that, they have something else happen that debilitates them even further. What do? You don't abandon that person. You know you love them. And yet, let's say you have a separate career. Do you leave your career for the sake of this? Many people just automatically say, yes, that's what you do. You know, that's the person you love. You do it. Fine. How do you mourn the loss of your career then? Because now this is your life? What if you don't have the resources that everybody can chip in or the finances to help deal with a situation like this? These are all things that people struggle with on a regular basis. And the problem is, as much as we do therapy, as much as we look at medication, things like that, we're not changing the bottom line of their situation. And therefore, we're not able to get the results that we would in many other circumstances when dealing with patients. So I'm just setting that up in the first place, because if we don't acknowledge that, then I think we're going to be spinning our wheels talking about this. Because so many times I've had the uncomfortable situation of saying to someone, I recognize that I can't change your home. And at least saying that gives some level of freedom to have the emotions when they're talking to me that they may not be able to have with their spouse, significant other, family member, whatever. Just saying.
Fair point. So the next thing that we're going to discuss, and we touched on it very briefly, is that she has difficulty at times dealing with the leadership role as queen. Never mind being married to Black Bolt and everything, that it's a lot for her. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, so to speak. And she has left or abdicated the throne a few times, and it's not always easy for her to be the person. You know, at one point she leaves and she goes, you know what? Let's set up a democracy. I'm tired of this whole king and queen royal family stuff. Let's make it more democratic. I think for writing status quo reasons, they end up coming back to it. But from a character standpoint, I think that that's something that she struggles with. And to be frank, I don't think we've done any characters before that have been royalty within their respective worlds or universes. we've had characters that have had power, but I don't think we've ever done anybody who's been considered royalty.
Right.
Which carries with it its own set of struggles.
As we are seeing right now in current culture.
Yeah, literally. I mean, we're dealing with that. Shoot, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
And it's interesting it's interesting that you just mentioned heavy is the head that wears the crown, because full disclosure, everyone, that is a statement that I've been saying to myself for about a month now. Because although I am not royalty, I do not hold that type of power, but I am in administration now in what I do, in addition to seeing patients every day. And I will say that there are plenty of times where I just say to myself, I just want to go back to being a doctor. I don't know what on earth am I supposed to do with all of this. And by the way, I'm not even close to quitting. I'm not quitting. So I don't want to give that impression. I'm just saying I feel personally attacked by this current issue. I feel seen. But no, the main point, though, is this is a situation where you've mentioned we've dealt with the idea of you have power thrust upon you as opposed to whether you wanted it or not. But you have choices as to who you marry. You have choices as to once you know who that person is. And in this case, it's a distant cousin. I'm not going to get into the incest thing. It's not. Distant cousins is not truly incest, once you get past a certain level, okay? I'll leave it at that. I'm not trying to start anything. My point is, who that person is in terms of, it doesn't even have to be royalty. If they're rich, if they're famous, if they're, in a high position somewhere, okay? That if you're in that relationship and you jump into it. Some people think that that's a blessing, and it can be. But many other people recognize that because now they're in that circle, in that category, once you're in it, you really don't, quote unquote, get the option of just taking time for yourself to play back to what we were just talking about. So you now are a face that the world looks at. If you are at that level, then I know we've talked about being on. The question is, what is there to turn off? Every detail is known about you. You do not have anonymity. You do not have the general privacy that we would consider on a regular basis. Just about anybody at any level below that gets that. Royalty doesn't. They really don't. Unless you are in such a dictatorial royalty that you're feared and that's a whole different story. I'm talking what society in general would view as a much more popular, accepting, still has a government that includes the people sort of thing. I'm trying my best not to be specific to the British family, but I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, I was going to say, tying into that there are certain members of the British family that I wouldn't say have anonymity, but have far less of a high profile than, say, Harry and not the distant cousins, like Princess Anne or,
right. Not to get too much on a tangent, but I think this is excellently done in The Crown. If anybody has seen that show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's a random plug. I think they did a great job, but I know I'm digressing, but I'm really not, because it's directly relevant to this. Everybody has that feeling of at some point wanting to stand down. And the question is, what do you do with that feeling? Do you use it as a motivation to say, if I can't have it for myself, then I'll make sure as many people around me can have it? Because in a way, you almost become a magnet where you draw the attention around you. And in theory, the people that are close to you end up on like this outside shield, and they can get, as you said, some of this level of privacy, at least less attention. And the fact that you can do that can be its own reward. Queen Elizabeth has basically been sustained by the idea that her pride in Britain is the greatest gift that she could have ever been given. And she's willing to show it until the day she breathed her last breath. And it's an incredible thing to see. Medusa doesn't have that. Medusa, from the moment that she realized just how important this was was trying to find every alternative possible. And if you're in that situation, not only does it make you less of an effective leader because people aren't going to trust you as much. How do I know you're not going to flake on me? You know, that's one part. Then you have the other part of when, as she has shown, she will step up. She will do what she feels is necessary to help those around her get the job done.
Absolutely.
Right. But the point is, when you do that and it's sporadic, it becomes almost, how do I put this? It depends on the amount of the interval. It almost becomes like an addiction where people will say like, oh, well, what's she going to do next? What's going on here? Is this meant for a show? Are you really, do you mean it? Like what's happening? You know, you were in and then you're out. Which is, you're almost doing the hokey pokey, you know? For people that wonder about that sort of thing where it can work in your favor. You can be absolutely adored by the times you show up versus the times you hold back. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm going to go there. So in terms of wrestling, I would say the John Cena Rock feud for the 2 WrestleManias is a great example of this, because John Cena did a great job absolutely roasting him, pointing out, yeah, like that time you said that, you know, you're back and you're never going to leave until you left again. And Rock basically said, right, I left because I have my career and I was doing what was best for my family and myself. And I had a wonderful time doing it. And now that I'm back, I'm still doing this well, too. It is possible to split things up and not have to be the guy all the time and not have to worry about exactly what everybody thinks of you in every moment. And I think that dichotomy is a great example because Medusa's struggling with that internally. She has her own things that she wants to do. She has to sublimate that to everyone. I know we talked about Black Bolt in that relationship, but now when you add that level of prestige, that level of power, the thing that so many people in society want to reach out to and strive to get, she's trying to throw away. That could be taken as an insult. So you put all of that together, you're walking the thinnest of lines with the maximum amount of stress. Good old sword of Damocles right there. So Godspeed.
Damocles being held by a hair.
Right.
Which is a perfect segue to number 3. Her prehensile hair. And the thing about it is that Medusa's hair can be cut only if she allows it. That's in the comics. Not going to get into the show where it's cut with literally like a razor and they just buzz Serinda Swan's head. Just bzz, bzz, bzz. Her hair can only
shave and a haircut. No mist.
Boom. Well done, sir. Point for you. In any case, her hair can only be cut if she allows it, which, again, in the Jenkins Lee run, she did, in fact, allow it to be cut by Maximus, which served the whole purpose of that the false sense of security that she and Black Bolt were creating. So her hair is a major part of her identity, and it serves as a major part of who she is. And so the handful of times that she has lost that hair, that is a blow to who she is, especially in the later story with the Inhumanity, where her hair is falling out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a major setback for her.
Yeah.
Talk me through what that's like when you have something that's such a part of you and it's gone.
You know, it's interesting. I know I don't do this that often. You tell me. What is it like when your hair falls out and something that such a big part of you is gone? I don't, and let me make this clear, because Anthony is giving me like the real stink eye here. What I'm talking about, though, has nothing to do with hair specifically. I'm bringing it back. Don't worry. It has nothing to do with hair specifically. It could just as easily be someone like me, where it's like you're closer to 40 than you are to 30, and yet, you know, depending on the day that you wake up, you know that there's going to be a zit somewhere on your face. There are some people that simply know that there's something about them that they love and they do their best to keep to it. It's why we get Botox. It's why we do so many things. It's not a negative, okay? I'm not trying to shame anyone that does that. That's not what I mean. What I'm getting at is your sense of identity tied to who you physically are. It's important. We all look different. It's really a benefit because that's a huge reason why we're able to tell who the heck we are. That's fine. The problem is if that becomes such a major part of you that if anything changes, you can't function. Medusa's in a rare situation because it's a superpower. It's not just a cosmetic thing. So, yeah, I can see that being a big deal. Similarly, I can go back to the hair in terms of someone that has alopecia and simply doesn't have it, or the more common thing, someone went through cancer treatment and they don't have it. They're a survivor. They went through something that many people have experienced. Some make it, some don't. And for someone like Medusa, it is directly relevant. I think it's a good analogy because she had something that she had to endure that otherwise, if she didn't, it would have been way more painful for a lot of other people. And yet, life goes on. So you, heaven forbid, you had some sort of nickname that identified you with a certain look or a certain type, and then that changes as you age or whatever. You can't regain that. That's the problem. It's hard to replace things that are lost on your body. We don't grow new kidneys, lungs. Yeah, you can regrow part of your liver, but I'm just saying it's very limited. If you, especially on the outside, lose something, yeah, you can get surgeries and different things depending on what it is, but it's not the same. No one I've ever talked to that's had an amputation ever says, with rare exceptions, and no one I've ever met said, well, my leg's gone, but I'm really glad I got this prosthetic. That would be a lie. So from that standpoint, that type of grief can be just as tragic as losing a person, losing a loved one. Don't downplay it. The main thing, though, that I've noticed is it can't just be one thing. Don't identify yourself to just one trait. I'm going to extend it beyond physical. Don't extend yourself to just being one thing. If you're out there right now, if you're the jock, don't just be the jock. If you're the nerd, don't just be the nerd. I should have learned that a long time ago. If you are, if you're a foodie and you love to cook and everything else, fine. There are other things in the world too. The more you can spread yourself out and the more things that you can identify with, you can lose 99 out of 100 and still be you. And if you don't have any right now, and if that's the way you're feeling, then doggone it, do me a favor, call up someone, because I'm sure they're going to be able to find the one for you. Because when you lose who you are, that's where a lot of times people feel like they have nothing left. And it doesn't have to be that way. So with someone like Medusa, you already said it. It's the equivalent of dying. But if I were in that circumstance, I would say, my queen, you still have your head. Just saying.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, I think that is as good a place as any. We're going to take a short break, plug a few shows. When we come back, we're going to get into treatment. Stay tuned.
Do you or someone you know struggle through life with anxiety-related mental disorders? Ever get that feeling that you are one of the few? I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. Take a journey with me as I talk about key points in my past and how they may have led to me being diagnosed with anxiety and panic disorder. After which, we will talk about different ways to tone down the anxiety and maybe even beat it together on anxiety. The easiest way to remember the name is by thinking about how one searches for a state of zen in the midst of the anxieties of life. My name is Gerald, and I'm the host of Anxiety.
Hey podcast fans, I'm Rachel, host of We're All Mad Here, a new podcast about the history of mental health. Do you love history? Do you love creepy stories of abandoned hospitals? How about questionable medical procedures? We're covering it all. Not only will we sneak around in old asylums, we'll talk about the patients that stayed there and what their lives were like. We're covering disorders, cures, and living life with mental illness. So come join us on We're All Mad Here at allmadpod.com, because the history of mental illness is insane.
Hi, this is Robbie Thompson, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
And we're back. So, treatment, Medusa, in universe.
I'd want to be as far away from Black Bolt as possible because he would obliterate me instantly, I think. Just an opinion. I hope I'm wrong about that. But to go back to the hair thing, I think there's a huge opportunity there, believe it or not. The fact that she has what I have seen so far to be a magnanimous spirit, and she can't hold on to her hair herself. I'm going to bring something out of universe and bring it in universe. I mentioned cancer patients that lose their hair. I hope everyone is aware of this. If not, then I'm doing more good than I realize. You can donate hair. And I've seen it firsthand. People are eternally grateful. Now imagine if that hair was magical. Imagine if that hair had powers, things that would allow you to do things you never even imagined. And if Medusa can't hold on to it, what if she actually found a way? Once again, I know because comics, but found a way that hair could go to other people that may need it. The fact that it's prehensile, how many people that can't do things for themselves? As we mentioned, I gave examples of outside relationships where that's a big dynamic problem. Imagine having, instead of like a therapy pet or an assistance animal or a home health aide even, all you need is just a few strands of hair that'll be able to open and close things for you. That'll be able to help you get down the stairs. That'll be able to allow you to live a life that's...
Quadriplegics with prehensile hair.
Can you picture that? Can you imagine the satisfaction that someone that of her type that has already demonstrated that is actually what motivates her to have people lead more independent lives? Can you imagine the emotional relief that could give her, even in a time of personal loss? I think that would be pretty powerful. And I would like to help her coordinate that. That would be the number one thing I think I could do for her in that moment. Because grief takes many different forms. But as I've said in previous episodes, how do you honor that memory? And it sounds ridiculous to say it, but if someone loses something, how do you honor it? Because you want that feeling to be more positive than negative. And it's really tough to do that any other way. That's one side. The Black Bolt situation and the relationship and all of that with regards to her monarchy. I think that type of example of doing something like that would show someone like Black Bolt. I don't think you would be willing to do that. It's almost a challenge, not meant as a major confrontation, but just more of, this is who I am. Help me understand who you are. If she led that initiative without him even coming close to saying it, because let's be honest, how many people would actually say, oh, well, that was Black Bolt's idea? Really? Her hair? That's Black Bolt's idea? I don't think anybody would go that far. So it gives her that sense of autonomy as well, that sense of her voice. There are so many things that can capture. And ultimately, that dirty work of them talking it out as a couple, once again, I'm not exactly sure. This is one of those, I'm going to use the cop-out. We may need some sort of telepath, psychic, whatever, because we need some way to really get this out together. And I can't have Black Bolt silent. Not like that.
But I mean, he does use sign language, but...
Right. But there's a much more practical thing that we're going to get to in the skit that I'm not mentioning right now because I don't want to give that away.
All right. So is there anything out of universe then? I guess the corollary would be
everybody gets therapy, whether they admit it or not. You may not have a professional therapist. So if you're in a royal family, you have people you confide in. You do. If you're a president or a vice president or a secretary of state or a prime minister or whatever, you don't have to have it as an official person, but you got someone. Or at least I hope, really, really hope they do. So if we're going to take that tact in terms of that, that's one thing. And I think I've already, I've exhausted what I said about people with certain losses and all of that. So I don't think I need to rehash that piece. But to get back to the important person in a incredible scrutinized spotlight, all of that, the amount of pressure it takes to improve the anonymity and the confidentiality, most important, is immense. And I'm saying this with I'm not saying firsthand knowledge. I do not have firsthand knowledge, but I am aware that there are certain techniques where a person is able to have contact with royalty without other people knowing. And that's actually how therapists end up in contact. And it's an exclusive club because you don't ask. It's not like you give them your business card. You
don't find them, they find you.
Exactly. And in those circumstances, I can tell you that basically, if that's your clientele, then you do nothing else. You do not have to see that many more patients on a regular basis because they make it worth your while.
I imagine they would.
Right. So from that standpoint, I can't speak to any specific magical technique. There is none. So, well, no, I mean, sometimes people have this idea. You know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lay this out there. Some people have this idea that the more prestigious you are or the higher up you are, that you get a different type of treatment than the common folk. Okay? That does not exist. So I think the message I can get across is you are not a VIP. You are not holier than thou. You are of the flesh and of the mind of everyone else walking this planet. And any therapist that's worth their value is going to make sure that you're aware of that. Because I'll tell you right now, that's a pet peeve of mine. I get VIPs. And when I get them, I make sure that they know that I shake their hand the exact same way that I shake the hand of the people that clean our hospitals. There is no difference. And if they can't accept that, then they need to talk to a different person. So
good on you.
I get that a lot of our job, to be honest with you, is customer service. And we don't talk about it that way. I respect that, but there has to be a proper fit. And in those circumstances, a therapist will bend over backwards to make it a proper fit as long as it's productive. If all it is glad handing because you're in a high up official or whatever, nah, it's not going to work. It's not going to do any good. If anything, it actually do a lot of harm because the person starts to think, oh yeah, see, that's exactly how perfect I am in the first place. So a lot of times the therapist's goal is more to keep the person grounded, to make sure that they recognize the parts that still connect them with humanity, because there is a sense of, and as there should be, there is a sense of pride in what you do when you have a high position, but you can't let that ego build out of control. So a lot of times it's deflating the balloon a little bit. Sometimes it's simply, you need to cool your jets. You do get too emotional, or just giving that type of feedback. You're the no man instead of the yes man. As long as the person accepts it, because just as easily as they brought you in, they'll take you out. And no, I don't mean that in like a conspiratorial way.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, it's good to know that you're treating the highfalutin mucky mucks the same as your average Joes, but that's good to know. But let's see what happens when you get Medusa on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Your Majesty. I'm Dr. Issues.
I appreciate the formality, but Medusa is acceptable.
Very well, Medusa. What can I do for you?
Have you any experience in couples counseling?
Briefly, as part of my training, but it's not an area I'd say I'd have an expertise in.
What do you know of sign language?
Aside from I love you and thank you, nothing more. Is this leading to something?
I need someone to help my husband and I.
I see. Your husband is Black Bolt, correct?
Yes, I'd tell him to speak to you himself, but, well, you wouldn't survive the discussion.
I'm aware, and I appreciate you looking out for me. Well, I'm not a couples counselor, but I can certainly offer guidance to you on certain issues.
Are you married?
Yes.
How long?
Almost 14 years, and we've been together for over 20 years.
That's quite a long time. Would you consider you and your wife equals in the relationship?
Indeed. I married her because she challenges me. She's made me a better man since we've been together.
How often do you tell each other I love you?
Every day, every chance we can. You know, normally I'm the one asking questions in these sessions.
I understand, but you have to know it's so rare for me to have the opportunity to have an actual dialogue, to ask questions and hear verbal responses.
That makes sense. What part of that upsets you the most?
It's when I speak, people assume I'm speaking for my husband, as though I don't have opinions or ideas of my own. It's difficult to be taken seriously because we're equals, but no one treats me as such.
That does sound frustrating. What do you do to differentiate yourself from your husband?
My tactics tend to be more direct in nature. He's more of a circuitous, diplomatic thinker. He formulates plans for the long term, and because he can't tell us what he's doing, we're left to just trust him implicitly. So I have to tell everyone to believe in his plan, even if I don't know what's happening.
Has that ever backfired?
In the end, it always works out. For him, anyway.
How about you? Does it work for you?
Again, in the end, things are always manageable. But because he can't speak and he isolates himself so often, the rest of the royal family and I have to suffer alongside our people. We have to answer for his decisions because he can't. It is an unenvious position.
I can imagine. Let me ask you this. What would you do differently if he could speak? How would you handle interactions with your subjects or the rest of the royal family?
I have never pondered that question. He's been silent so long it's ingrained in my mind.
Well, let's pretend for a moment. Pretend I'm one of your subjects. What would you say to me about how things are going on in Adelan?
I would say that the royal family will always act in the best interests of the Inhumans, whether they live in Adelan or they reside elsewhere.
Oh, that sounds very formal, like public relations speak.
I'm sorry, I'm so accustomed to making presentations.
Forget all that. What do you want to say? Speak from your heart. Tell me what you'd say if you weren't queen. How would you present yourself?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I know it's difficult.
No, I mean, I'm sorry to my people. I have put you through so much, asked for so much sacrifice, and we don't often demonstrate enough appreciation for that sacrifice. We ask you to trust in a silent leader, and we do care about you, even if it seems sometimes as though we deem ourselves above you. I wish I could speak to you more often, learn what your needs truly are. I want to be a queen for my people, not just a spokesman for my husband. The trappings of royalty are burdensome, and I often dream of abandoning them, but to abandon my authority would be akin to abandoning my people, and that is something I cannot do. So I carry this burden not only because I have to, but because I want to. I simply ask for patience and understanding. If any resident feels we are pursuing an unwise course of action, please say so in a respectful manner, and we will take those considerations under advisement. We simply want what is best for our people. I wish I could make them understand that.
Well, if you speak to them like that, I'm sure it would happen. Have you spoken to Black Bolt like this?
Not enough, I suppose. He's so stoic. He doesn't appreciate the passion of the position.
The passion or your passion? I'm sorry to say this, but it's very clear that for being his spokesperson, you're not in sync. You've made an assumption about his goals and yours. Perhaps I can help you get on the same page.
How do you suggest doing so?
Well, there's one format that we haven't talked about. Writing.
I suppose that could help bridge the gap.
First, do it separately. You spoke it so eloquently to me, then go ahead, use those words. But writing, directly to him. And then simultaneously have him write to you, you swap papers, and... Well, usually we both have people read them aloud, but you get the point.
That could definitely work.
By the way, I don't want to make assumptions, but does he approve of you meeting with me like this at all?
Despite the fact that we are, as you say, not in sync, or perhaps because of it, I do not need his permission to take actions to save our marriage.
Duly noted. Just be aware that no matter what, as your psychiatrist, I stand with you. And like your husband, I won't speak of this to anyone else.
If that was an attempt at humor, it was appreciated.
Thank you so much to Anna from Freudian Sips for doing the voice of Medusa. Anna, we appreciate it very, very much. You can check out her show at freudiansipspod.com. They're one of our fellow mental health Avengers. Thank you so much for filling in. I felt Medusa was not vocally really within my wheelhouse, but thank you so much. You did a fantastic job. We appreciate you stepping up for us.
Yeah, we originally had Queen Elizabeth lined up, but she canceled at the last moment.
Yeah, she's got some of her own stuff to deal with. So, so that's going to wrap it up this week. Next episode is going to be Mental Health Avengers Age of Access. So we're going to get all of our friends together. We're going to talk about how access to mental health is needed and what some of the obstacles are and how we can overcome them. So it's going to be an awesome discussion. Really looking forward to it. Then Bane, Political Terrorism in Comics, and The Tick.
One of these things is not like the others.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's also why we went with The Tick following the political terrorism, because that one's going to be very, very heavy. That one's going to get a content/trigger warning. And so we need just a little bit of a breather after that.
Oh, yeah.
And The Tick is going to be definitely a breather, fun, not serious at all.
Right.
At all. So that'll be very cool. Reminder for our review giveaway. We did the review read at the top of the episode. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Stitcher, and you send us a screen cap of it along with your address and you email it to capesonthecouch@gmail.com, we will send you a sticker. So thank you for all of our fans who leave us ratings and reviews, because that helps us grow in the standings and gets us more seen by more people. So you can find us on all of the social medias at Capes on the Couch. Our website is capesonthecouch.live. We're available basically everywhere you find podcasts. And for our patrons, as we've said, we have our Patreon page at patreon.com/Capes on the Couch. At the $3 level, we will be recording for our February, our first ever trade paperback review, and we're going to be doing Joker Endgame. So very much looking forward to that one. So if you subscribe at our Patreon page at the $3 level and up, you will get to hear our little 15 to 20 minute review of Joker Endgame. So that's going to about do it for this week. Doc, anything you want to add?
Every woman at some point in their life deserves to be a queen, because sometimes you just have to let your hair down.
I was waiting for the pun. I knew it was coming, and you did not disappoint. Thank you so much. For Dr. Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.